Wisconsin Eyes in Waukesha. We're interviewing Brian Dorow. He's one of 3 Republicans in the June 23rd primary in the 33rd Senate District. Brian, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you, and thank you for coming.
Well, our pleasure. What's, in your mind, what's the top issue in this campaign?
Public safety.
Public safety?
Public safety.
Explain.
Yes. Heroin, we know it's an epidemic in this county. The deaths have increasing, and we're seeing significant increases. It's impacting all the communities, not just one. It's in the schools, and our law enforcement community is reporting 100% of police chiefs at a local meeting reported that was their #1 concern. From last year, 40%. So, you know, we're starting to see things that we haven't seen before. Give you an example, a bank robbery in the local community for the first time in 30 years. First time in 30 years, and related to someone who needed to purchase heroin to, yeah. So public safety is #1.
Okay, now you were a Waukesha police officer for 10 years.
Yes.
And for 11 years you've been doing what, sir? I've
been the Dean of Criminal Justice, Homeland Security, Counterterrorism at Waukesha County Technical College.
And that involves training police officers?
It does. It's on many fronts. So we have a program, we have an associate degree for those aspiring to go into law enforcement. We have the Police Academy, which is the job-ready Police Academy boot camp for those that are about ready to take the oath to be officially become a police officer. And then we do hundreds of different workshops, training mandates, police and services to train the existing workforce to make sure they stay fresh in their area. If they need a different skill set, they want to become a SWAT officer, a sniper. And we offer a whole series of leadership courses, so if they want to promote through their career from police officer to sergeant to lieutenant, all the way up through police chief, we offer all that training. Locally, regionally, we've had some nationwide Homeland Security and counterterrorism programs, and then most recently I actually was invited to South Africa about 6 months ago to go provide some suggestions because they lose so many officers are killed in the line of duty.
Well, as a law enforcement professional, what's the next step that we need to take to fight the heroin problem that you just spoke about?
We certainly have to align with the Attorney General Brad Schimel, his different plans that he has underway. That's so important. He ran his campaign to certainly lessen the impact of heroin on these communities. So I would be his #1 ally in whatever he needed to do as a state legislator. Then we need to take a collaborative approach. You don't police yourself out of heroin. You don't arrest yourself out of heroin. You take a collaborative approach. You bring all the stakeholders that it's impacting, from the schools to the faith-based community, to the community leaders, to the employers that are starting to have their workforce impacted by those. Bring those together, start talking about what are you seeing. You know, what are you seeing? Is it, you know, this type of activity? You know, what is happening? And then make sure the parents are aware of what they need to look for. That is so important. Are you seeing differences in your children's behavior? You know, are they acting somewhat different? You got to get a hold of that right away before it escalates. I have a friend who is experiencing that, and now that after she started seeing her daughter go through some terrible times right now, she says, "Brian, I realized some of the stuff when she was back in 8th grade. Now she's in 10th grade. I didn't realize. I just thought she was growing up, and you know. But she started using back in 8th grade when there were some signs that she should have been aware of, and different behavioral changes. Those are all important. So I want to make sure the parents know as well, and then be a liaison to all the different resources. That's my background. I can make an impact.
As a law enforcement professional, what's been your reaction to the incidents in the Fergusons and the Clevelands and the Baltimore? Has that changed the dynamics of your career, sir?
It has. It has. I've been troubled by those responses. Again, I'm a law enforcement person. I train law enforcement. I see those brave men and women that put their lives out there every day. It is a tough job. The challenges that they're up against, they're going into policing these different communities, and now they're under scrutiny like never before. Certainly, we want accountability. If an officer does something, we want them held accountable for their actions. But we don't want to stigmatize the entire profession as somebody's doing something wrong. That's uncalled for. We rely on those men and women. Every time 911 calls in, you want that officer at your door. We're calling them. We need their service, and we need to support them.
Some people believe that officers wearing cameras would be a partial answer. Do you agree?
Well, you know, that's challenging, you know, because we give them all this duty equipment. We load them up with everything. If you see a police officer now, they're almost like a robot. I mean, they have their equipment that they need. They have microphones. They have cameras. They have stuff on their eyes. You know, it's just I always believe let's just hold those accountable for that don't do good work or to an acceptable standard, and let's let the other ones just do their jobs. You know, we always sit back when a law enforcement officer, they're called upon to make a split-second decision in a time, 3 o'clock in the morning on a dark road, and perception plays itself out. Let's just let them do their jobs. We need them, so they keep our community safe, and without them, we'd be in a world of hurting, and let's just leave them alone. And again, accountability is important, but those that are doing their jobs, we don't have to add. Certainly if the police chiefs want to add those things as an extra layer of protection, let's just leave them alone.
Okay, I'm sure there are issues in your campaign, so let's talk about some of the major budget issues. The proposed funding for the Bucks Arena,
yes.
$250 million out of the $500 from public funds. Do you support that?
I do not.
Why?
I'm opposed to the arena. First of all, we've watched over the last couple of weeks, the numbers have changed, the different proposals that come forward. Before I'd be comfortably even looking at it and voting on something like that, I'd want to see the actual numbers, the proposal, in a written document for everyone. One thing about me, I am transparent. I've been transparent in my public service career for over 20 years, and that's how I build trust and relationships. I'd want to see the document, and then more importantly, I'd like Milwaukee to take action on this first. The state is being pulled into it, but I'd like Milwaukee, let it go through their common council, they take the votes, and then they reach to the state. It seems like it's almost in reverse. Certainly, we want the Bucks to stay. We all enjoy the Bucks. We benefit from them. But in this particular situation, let's see the proposal on the table. Make it transparent. Let the constituents weigh in on it, and then make a decision. But I'd like to see Milwaukee take the lead. Transportation
funding. The governor, as you know, in February recommended borrowing $1.3 billion. Some lawmakers say that's too high. They want to dial it down. They are willing to talk about raising the gas tax or the vehicle registration fee. Your position on how to pay for transportation?
Yes, I'm not in favor of the bonding at that level, and nor am I in favor of any taxes or fee increases. What I am in favor of prioritization. We know we need our zoo interchange. That's a priority, but let's look at stuff that's no longer a priority and reallocate funds to make this happen. So definitely not in favor of new taxes or a fee increase.
If we don't bond at $1.3 billion like the governor recommended, what number would you be comfortable with, sir?
You know what? I don't. That's certainly something I would have to look at to make sure, but I'm not comfortable with the whole thing. A partial amount is certainly doable in the right direction, but certainly not the whole amount.
Republican Senator, a new subject. Republican Senator Strobel just said this morning that unless the budget repeals the prevailing wage, he's going to vote against it. Your position on prevailing wage?
I'd repeal prevailing wage. That's where I stand on that.
Do you want it to be part of the budget? Would you?
It should be, but certainly I would look at it either way, but I would want to repeal it. And that's certainly a very important topic of conversation, the knocking on doors in this district, and hope to get to about 6,000 doors. And so that is a concern in the 33rd Senate District. The constituents, they want it repealed. It goes back, and understand it's a federal law, but it goes back to the 1930s. We need to catch up with the current times, and anytime you're inflating these public works projects, the taxpayers are not in favor of that at all.
The vote this week in the state Senate to prohibit abortions after the 20th week. Would you have voted for that bill?
Yes. Well, pro-life 100%, no exceptions. That's my position on that.
Okay. The cut to the university system. The governor in February recommended $300 million over 2 years. Joint Finance has reduced that. Do you support that cut at $300 or $250 or another number?
Certainly I support the cut to the UW system. There's room there for efficiencies and certainly look at things differently. I think the number could be between the 250 and the 300, but certainly I would support that, and certainly just we want to make sure it stays very efficient. But I would support the cut. I don't know if it is between a 250 or 300, but it's somewhere I would support that.
The governor also recommended giving the UW system the authority to operate on its own, separate from state government. Do you have a position on that?
Yeah, I'm for local control, and if that would be a version of local control, I certainly believe I'd be in favor of that. I always like accountability, and I like local control, and so certainly I would support that.
WEDC is discussed, the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. The governor said, let's stop giving loans to individual businesses. Do you think that'd be a good change? What changes would you make in WEDIC to make it more effective?
Well, I think it should be fair across the board. I don't think we should just give certain businesses, these incentives. I think it should be fair across the board, and that's what I would support. Just open up to all businesses instead of just a handful, cherry-picked businesses.
Okay, you hope to knock on 6,000 doors. What's the number one issue that people talk to you about, Brian?
It's two things. One floats up to the top, but one is a close second. Public safety, we had mentioned. The neighborhoods. Everything starts with the neighborhood. To have a high quality of life. We live in, people can Waukesha County come here because of the reputation, the school system, quality of life, public safety. We've seen some changes. And so they're concerned about, the heroin, and you'd be surprised knocking the doors. Yes, we know it impacted my neighbor's kid, or, I know of somebody. Everyone knows of somebody that's been impacted by that. Some of the other things, the crime just in general. I'm hearing more sirens than I've heard before. I heard that a couple times. What do you mean you're hearing more sirens? Well, I think it's their perception that, they're being called all over the place. So public safety. The other thing, when you knock on people that own business, their doors, or you knock on people that oversee operations, the skills gap. Shortage of workers, that is so important in this region. There's certainly they don't have the skilled workers that they need to fill these jobs, and it's almost come down to there's a quote, "I'm just looking for a warm body." I've been in workforce development for 10 years. That's unacceptable. We need somebody that wants to take that job with a high degree of pride, who is qualified, who wants to do it to the highest level of ability. So those things are almost like dual battling it out for the top priority.
Well, do they talk about property taxes? Because that's a big priority with Governor Walker.
Yeah, they want lower property taxes. But no one has ever said they want a high quality of life. The taxes certainly are important. Taxes, I haven't heard many of those say, well, I want lower property taxes, but it is a concern. It is a concern. But they always talk about, we want this area to be robust. We want it to thrive. And what you read in the newspaper, the headlines, they're seeing the changes over the years or a period of time.
Another recommendation of the governor would you'd have to drug testing to qualify for unemployment benefits and other public benefits. Your position?
Yeah. What I'd like to see, a good concept overall, but I'm not sure how that would be funded. That goes into, I think, a gray area. And who would fund something like that? Who would be the oversight manager or organization? And I'd like to see that play out, but I more or less want to see how much it would cost to do that. Is it cost prohibitive or not? And then who would be held, what organization would do that testing, and all those things that go into taking a sample of something like that. I'd be more interested in looking at those ideas as well.
Let's go back to the skills gap that you identified. Is it the best way to fight the skills gap? Is it to better fund the tech colleges like you work for, or what's the best way to give those employers skilled workers?
Certainly not more funding. Never, But what it'd be looking at is some of the existing programs that are funding the youth option programs, the apprenticeship programs, the transcripted credits, the dual academy. We have these existing programs in place. They're underutilized, and some of them are actually tied to state statutes. So they're not consistently being looked at because of things that need to be looked at, tweaked, or so they're there. Let's utilize them. Let's get the workforce coming in. So if somebody in high school wants to take college-level courses that we call transcripted credits because they aspire to go in a manufacturing area, let's get them to earn that credential when they're in high school. These programs exist. They can be job ready in the event they choose not to go to a college or university. Or maybe if after the experience with a college or university, that didn't work out for them, but now they want to go into a different avenue. These programs exist. Let's get them working. Let's get them consistent throughout the state. There are some colleges that have them, others do not. That's how we're going to address the skills gap. That's how we're going to get our workforce thriving, is get them interested, get them trained to the highest level. Job ready is what I call it. School to work programs, job ready, so our employers. Because if we have a shortage of labor, if we don't have a trained workforce, we're not going to attract companies to this region. You know, and in Waukesha, we have a lot of manufacturing companies. You know, so we don't even want to start. You know, that seems to be the headline on a regular basis, and so we want businesses attracted here for our workforce.
Another part of the budget is the vouchers and choice program. Should there be any limits on that program?
No.
Outstate? No.
No, I'm in favor of uncapped voucher, in favor of charter schools.
Okay, and do you support all those, the vouchers and the learning at home and virtual schools?
Yes, I do. Yes.
The Democrats say that amounts to funding a second system of K-12 schools. Do you have a response?
No, I'm not. I don't believe that. I'd be in favor of that. You know, I see a lot of credibility. I've seen some success stories with the homeschooling and the charter schools, and certainly we want to give our parents some options. We don't want kids going into failing schools. That ties into our workforce. It's a whole big cycle that plays itself out. Give them a solid education, start their life, and move on to building a foundation. Schools are very important, and I support that.
As somebody who was an officer for 10 years, there are bills to legalize medical marijuana.
Yes.
Your position?
Absolutely not. I have seen this as a police officer working the streets. I have numerous incidents. My wife just happens to be a judge, and we have discussion. There's no doubt that marijuana is a gateway drug. I've interviewed people. Well, you're addicted to X drug. Where did you start? Well, I started using marijuana, and then the addiction, and then I wanted more, and the craving, and then I transferred over to I use this drug and drug Y and X, and before you know it, there's an addiction problem. And so, no, I would not be in favor of legalizing marijuana.
Something you say on your campaign website, smaller and more efficient government. Any examples of any cuts you would make in government, any specific agencies, sir?
Well, no specific agency at this point. I'd like to look at it and research it. But I don't like levels of bureaucracy if there's duplication of services or duplication of effort. I like to streamline it. So if a constituent needs something from government, they can just call or they can email and they get the answer. It's not like you get passed over to here, you get passed over there. I like streamlining it, and I'm all in favor of less bureaucracy. And it's something I'd look at to research is, do we have duplication of efforts? Are two people doing the same job that we don't need? And things like that, or are services being offered that are duplication of services, and streamline those services?
Okay. Any differences between you and your two opponents in the June 23rd primary you want to talk about?
Yeah, there's significant differences.
Please.
Okay, I have 20-plus years of commitment to this district, Waukesha County. I've been a public servant and certainly been involved in some pretty innovative things. I was involved in the city of Waukesha when there was, the quality of life had diminished, and they were concerned about the downtown. And a group of us, a whole team effort, between the mayor's office, the aldermen, local stakeholders, brought everyone together. If there's anything about me, I take a collaborative approach. Okay, certainly don't want to conservative values, but you always have to start with common ground and build off of that. I did that with the city of Waukesha. Okay, public safety is certainly one of our key areas that is impacting our community. I have that experience. Okay, my two opponents do not have that experience. I have 10 years of workforce development, working with developing our youth for jobs to make them job ready. That is another key area in this Senate seat right now is workforce development. Between public safety and workforce development, I have the years, and I'm a trusted leader in this county. Okay, my support during this race has really come out to show that people trust what I've done. They respect what I've done. I've earned their respect, and that means a lot to me. When you run for office, because who's coming out to support you, and that's very important.
Any specific issues like your best known opponent, Representative Cappinga, says he led the effort to repeal right to work. Is there any difference between you and he on that or other issues, sir?
I would say we're both very conservative, but our delivery and how we interact with people and how and again, I'm a team player. And I like involving people and listening. Listening is so important as a politician. You have to stay rooted to your constituents in your district. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to go. I'm going to represent the constituents after getting consensus, and at times certainly taking votes. But I'm always going to be in touch with them, to make sure I'm representing their interest and their values. And the other thing that I'm really strongly about is, if I'm successful in this election, I'm going to open an office right in the district. I want to be accessible. I want to be transparent, and I want the constituents to walk right into the door and say, you know what, I want to meet with Brian. And to resolve them, because when I was on the campaign trail and to this date, I hear, I called, I didn't get a response, and again from every, they call different politicians. That's not me. You will get a response. You will get the response that you need, and so that's the other thing that really separates us.
Is there anything? Is there any votes that Rep. Capping has taken that you would have voted differently? Any examples that come to mind?
I haven't looked at his entire voter history. I mean, we'd be, right to work would be consistent. Looks like prevailing wage would be, at the pretty much the same.
Okay.
But I haven't looked at his voter history over his last 5+ years.
So your number one issue then is public safety, given your experience as a law enforcement professional.
Public safety and workforce development. They would be tied right now based on the needs of this district.
Okay, very good. Brian Dorow of Waukesha is one of 3 Republican candidates in the June 23rd primary in the 33rd Senate District. Brian, good to see you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.